Yes, I know it's not going to happen, but I do want to look at what all of this tells us about the level of satisfaction or dissatisfaction when it comes to our politics and our politicians. Also, speaking of politicians, Rachel Reeves says never again read tax rises on businesses. Do you believe her? And did you see that horrendous shooting in London which saw an 8-year-old child get hit? What is going on across the streets of Britain? And an NHS whistleblower has spoken out about her concerns with just how deeply embedded radical gender ideology is within the NHS. Now, surely, if there's one place where literal biology should trump all, it would be in a health service, no? That is all to come and lots more, but first, let's get the 6 o'clock news headlines.
Michelle, thank you very much and good evening to you. It's just after 6 o'clock and apologies if I am slowly sinking in my chair as I bring the news to you. Well, it's being reported in Egypt that 2 British tourists have been rescued and 2 are still missing. The Foreign Office says it's supporting several British nationals and their families. The vessel was carrying 31 tourists and 14 crew when it went down near Marsa Alam. The cause of the sinking is still unclear, but the authorities in Egypt had been warning of high waves. Rescue efforts are still ongoing, being led by the military there and local officials. 28 people have been rescued so far. Here, a major incident has been declared in Northamptonshire after heavy rain triggered severe flooding across the country. Billing Aquadrome Holiday Park is at the centre of the crisis, with 1,000 residents affected and some still stranded in an area cut off by floodwaters. Emergency teams, including fire and police services, have been rescuing people by boat and had expected operations could continue for hours. The Environment Secretary says UK flood defences are in the worst condition on record. But Steve Reid says the government has pledged £2.4 billion to upgrade them.
Well, I've been kept updated throughout the weekend on the situation that's going on, and I've just come out of an emergency meeting with the Environment Agency. First thing to say is I want to offer my sympathies to everybody who's been affected by these floods and how devastating it is if your home or your business in particular get affected in this way. But I'd also like to offer my thanks to the emergency services on the ground who have been out there straight away this weekend, making sure people are kept safe.
The Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, has been defending her budget, telling business leaders it's brought stability to the economy. Speaking at the CBI conference earlier, she said difficult decisions were needed to draw a line under the inheritance from the previous government. Rachel Reeves also ruled out further borrowing or tax hikes, saying public services must now live within their means. Take a listen.
We have now drawn a line under the inheritance that I faced. Public finances are now on a firm footing, and also our public services are funded in a proper way. And we've now set the envelope for those public services for the rest of this Parliament, which means we're not going to have to come back for more.
And the Defence Secretary has said the UK's security starts in Ukraine and warned that if Vladimir Putin prevails there, he won't stop. Speaking alongside leaders from 5 European nations, John Healey condemned Russia's efforts to destabilise democracy and vowed to bolster Ukraine's defences as it now heads into its 3rd winter at war. Well, it comes after reports from French media this week have suggested Britain and France may be considering sending troops to Ukraine as part of a so-called European coalition. And a man has been arrested after a bomb hoax outside the US Embassy in London. Police were called to 9 Elms last Friday after reports of a suspicious package. It was safely dealt with, though, in a controlled explosion. Daniel Parmenter was arrested 2 days later and officers had searched his home. He appeared in court this morning and will now remain in custody until his hearing next month. And if you've been eagerly awaiting the annual presidential turkey pardon, well, Peach and Blossom are now safe for the holidays. The turkeys from Minnesota travelled to DC and even stayed in style at the Willard Intercontinental Hotel. Their pardoning by President Biden is a White House tradition, complete with puns earlier from the president, and kicks off the countdown to Thanksgiving. That tradition dates back to Abraham Lincoln in 1863. And if you're really that interested, you can catch it all on a live stream. Those are the latest headlines for now. Now it's back over to Dewbs.
Thanks for that. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm with you till 7 o'clock tonight. Alongside me, my panel, I've got Matt Goodwin, the pollster and academic, and Jonathan Liss, the political commentator. Good evening, gents. You're both very welcome tonight. As are each and every single one of you at home, what is on your mind this evening? There is a lot that we need to discuss, and you can get in touch and join the conversation all the usual ways. You can email me, gbviews@gbnews.com. You can go to the website, gbnews.com/yoursay, or, of course, you can tweet or X me, and if you're desperate to go out and do whatever it is you're doing tonight, don't worry, you can take me with you on your radio. But look, I'm sure you might have seen this now. We've got a situation where there's been an online petition that has been commenced, and get this, over 2.3 million people now have signed it, saying that they want a general election. They talk about things like broken promises from Labour. Now, I have to say, don't worry, everybody, I'm not daft. I'm not sitting here thinking, you know what, because of a petition online, there's going to be a general election tomorrow. Brenda from Bristol, you can relax. There's not going to be another one. I'm guessing that is what's going to happen. But what I do want to do is get into what's going on underneath all of this in this country. There's something that's making people turn out and put their name and details to these kind of petitions. What is it? I mean, Keir Starmer, he was asked about it today, so let's listen to what he responded.
Look, I remind myself that very many people didn't vote Labour at the last election. I'm not surprised that many of them want a rerun. That isn't how our system works. There will be plenty of people who didn't want us in the first place. So, look, what I focus on is the decisions that I have to make.
Lots, then, for us to discuss, and I do want to involve you in this conversation, because when I saw Jess Phillips, she was asked, why do you think people are signing this petition? And she said, well, I don't know, I'm not one of these people that have signed it, you'd have to ask them. And I was screaming at my screen, ladies and gents. I was thinking, how can you not know? How can you not know what is driving people to do this? Honestly, I despair. But you can tell me why, if you signed it. Why did you get in touch? What do you think is going on, Matt Goodwin?
Well, I think it's reflecting the complete disillusionment among millions of people in the country with this government. I actually disagree with Keir Starmer. I mean, he's right in one respect. This isn't how the system works in terms of how you produce an election, but the metrics for this Labour government across the board are terrible. Starmer's popularity, his net ratings are -38. He's one of the most unpopular new prime ministers that we've had in British history. Labour, the Labour Party's ratings have fallen through the floor. They're getting smashed apart in local by-elections. There was no mass public mandate for this Labour government, which is a curious thing to say given the size of the majority. But what we saw in July, remember, was a punishment election. People were punishing the Tories. They weren't welcoming Labour with open arms. So the wheels have come off very quickly. And yes, there's the winter fuel payments. Yes, there's smashing family farmers. Yes, there's not solving the illegal migration crisis. Yes, there's the dismal reaction to Southport and the two-tier policing. And yes, there's Keir Starmer, who looks completely lost and fundamentally at odds with where the rest of the country stands. But I think beyond that, you've got this real palpable, almost febrile atmosphere, Michelle, in the country where voters are saying, look, actually, I think we want some change already. And just briefly, if I may, look at the map of this petition too. London, Oxford, Cambridge, they're the least likely to sign this petition. The Northwest, Essex, Kent, the coastal towns. What you're seeing in this petition...
This is the map, by the way.
What you're seeing in that map, Michelle, is the looming, ongoing realignment of British politics. Look how dark red... Look how that dark red stretches down working class, pro-Brexit, hard-working, patriotic England. That's the home of the realignment.
Jonathan Liss is laughing.
Well, I mean, I always get amused when Remainers are de facto accused of being unpatriotic. It's a great way to unite the country by saying that only some people are patriotic. I guess people in London, by that metric, are not patriotic. They want to get rid of Starmer. Is that what you're saying, Matt?
I'd say a lot of Remainers would be just as comfortable in Paris, Berlin, New York.
That's not what I asked you. Are people in London not patriotic if they vote Labour? Is that what you... I just want to know what you're saying.
I think what you think. Remainers and Londoners have a different conception of what patriotism is. Yeah, I'm saying they have a different view of what patriotism is. They subscribe to universal...
Are you saying that I'm not patriotic because I voted to stay in the EU?
I bet if I asked you what was the best moment in our national identity, you'd wax lyrical about the 2012 Olympics or something like that. You'd say diversity is our strength, or we define who we are by welcoming others.
Sorry, that's not answering my question either.
No, but is that how you think of your patriotism?
I asked it, but, well, what I think about patriotism is obviously going to be different from yours. But
that's what I'm saying.
The implication of what you're saying, Matt, is that only some people are patriotic. Are you people who agree with you?
No, I'm saying people have a different conception of what patriotism is.
No, I'm sorry. You didn't say that. You didn't say that some people have a different conception of patriotism in those areas. You were saying that there were patriotic areas. The de facto implication of that being that other areas, such as London, Oxford, Cambridge, are not patriotic. And I want to know why you think that.
Because they have a different conception
of it. Because they vote Labour and they don't agree with you.
Labour
is just such... Well, why can't you at least own your position?
Absolutely. Well, if you let me just reply, I will. In the land of Labour, here's what patriotism is. Patriotism in Labour land is we define ourselves by welcoming others. That's fine, but you could say that if you were in any other country around the world. What you subscribe to in the Labour Party, or your friends, is a universal notion of patriotism. It's about welcoming difference. What I'm saying is there are millions of people out there probably watching this show outside of the big cities who say no. There's something distinctive about these islands, and we celebrate that
Every single country believes there is something distinctive about them, and there are obviously distinctive things about all countries.
Ultra-liberals don't. Ultra-liberals just think everybody... fundamentally, we're defined by welcoming difference.
No, that's something that you are putting... You're putting that into the mouths of
survey data shows that.
You're putting that into the mouths of people. If you're asking me about the things I love about Britain, of course I love...
What do you love about Britain?
Well, if you actually, I was about to tell you.
Well, go on then. How do you define being patriotic, basically?
Well, I think that being patriotic, part of that is just about accepting the country for what it is, not about what you would like it to be or what it used to be. And I think that actually a lot of people...
Because there's something wrong with our past.
I think a lot of people...
Let him answer. You can't ask him a question and not let him answer. Go on, Jonathan.
I'm used to it by now.
Go on.
I think a lot of people, they kind of... when you look at people like the Daily Mail, who always talk about patriotism, and then they always bash modern Britain, and kind of think, if you're talking about patriotism, they don't love Britain at all. They love a Britain that they might have invented in their imaginations, or they love a Britain that was supposed to exist in 1850. They actually hate modern Britain. And so many people on your side of the argument, they actually hate so much of Britain. I would say I'm more patriotic than they are, because I actually love the country that we have more than they do.
But the difference between...
and by the way,
Jonathan,
there are so many things about our past that you would think that I would poo-poo. Actually, I studied English at university. I love our language, our literature, our heritage. There's so many things about the past that I absolutely love. Just because I happen to accept there are things that Britain did in the past which were completely disgraceful, that apparently reduces my patriotism, because in order to be patriot, by your definition, we have to lie about our country. That, for me, is not patriotic at all.
What's it lying about?
What have I ever said that we have to lie about?
I'm not saying you personally, but people, when they kind of accuse...
OK, can I just come back on this?
Not being patriotic.
There is... The reason so many people are signing this petition, I think, to get back to the story, is because millions of people out there can sense. It's not that they dislike what Britain is today. It's that they know in their veins that Britain is so much better than what our leaders have reduced it to. And they want to bring back what they feel makes this country great, which is we are more proud than ashamed of our history. We have a distinctive national identity. We aren't just a global, universal blah that just celebrates diversity and multiculturalism that you can do in any other society. We have a unique culture, unique history, unique language, set of values that are specific to us, and we want to celebrate those things.
There's nothing wrong with any of that. And
so we agree.
I would agree that obviously it's not some sort of dazzling insight to say that different countries have different traditions and different cultures. Everyone agrees with that. England is different from Spain. Spain is different from Italy. Italy is different from Greece. They have a lot of things in common, but they are all separate. They have different languages, different histories, different things they're proud of, and that's great. No one is saying that we're all the same.
Do you think?
People should be proud of their countries. No one is saying that.
Do you think some cultures are superior to others?
Well, that is a completely different question.
No, I'm asking you a question. Do you think some cultures are superior to others?
I don't know how to answer that question. I think that cultures are different and that they have different value systems and I think that it's a very, very dangerous road to go down.
But this is the difference.
I don't know why you. I don't know why.
Well, can I explain why I'm asking? Because this is what gets at the difference. It's a difference between a universal view, which is everybody's the same, all cultures are equal, nations are basically comparable, versus another view which says actually no, some cultures are superior, some civilizations are superior, some peoples are superior. They've just made more contributions to the world.
Some peoples are superior.
Yeah, some people, some communities, some nations are superior. They've made bigger, more important contributions to the world. And it's a difference between a universal conception of patriotism, which is what I would suggest the Labour Party hold, what people like you hold, versus a more peculiar conception, a particular conception of national identity.
Mate. My God.
What do you think?
How have you gone through the Brexit debate and not realised this, by the way?
What do
Well, if we're going to talk about Brexit now, we'll probably take 50 minutes, but I don't think you'd be on the right side of the argument.
We're not going to talk about Brexit, thank you very much. We're going to go to a break. But look, Aaron says if Labour's got any respect for their country, they should call an early election. One viewer said 2.3 million people can't all be wrong. Labour needs to go. Darren says that Keir Starmer essentially wanted a second Brexit referendum, so let's do the same, keep asking for another election. Let me ask you this, though. If you did sign that petition and you think, 2 million plus, I think there should be a general election, so let's have one. There was another a petition a little while ago, a few years ago, to revoke Article 50, basically stay within the EU. That one got millions. I can't remember if it was 6 or 9 million. So if you're on that side of the fence where you're saying you've got 2 million people, so let's do it, would you be on the same side of the fence when you had triple that, basically, to stay in the EU? There you go. There's a question for you. Ponder that over the break. When I come back, look, let's talk about politics some more and the CBI conference, which took place today as well. I'll see you in 2.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
The BBC has been branded jaw-achingly stupid, not by me, by the way, over its decision to cast black and ethnic minority actors in the historical drama of Wharf Hall. Now, is this a forward-thinking idea or nonsense? Are we rewriting history? Henry, I mean, the Tudors were real-life people. They were pretty much white.
Well, some of these shows depart so much from historical context anyway that maybe it doesn't make any difference. But I think just generally we've got a problem in this country with portraying history in its correct sense. You can't change history. And I think it's about the motivation. If the motivation is to to make a political point, then I think it's wrong.
What I find kind of tedious about people finding this instant jaw-droppingly stupid, Jesus was portrayed by somebody who's half Slovak and half Irish. Moses was portrayed in the Exodus by an Englishman. So, same with Anne Boleyn, was portrayed by Natalie Portman, who is Jewish. So if this is the one thing that's getting people angry, then there's something deeper within that rage, because I think Hollywood's been doing that, where people...
When you say something deeper, do you think there is a hidden racism and people are complaining about this?
Well, I think for some, maybe yes. I can't speak for everybody because this news dropped today. I don't know why they are thinking that it's egregious, but there absolutely must be some underlying racism if this is the only one that you're upset about.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Nightmare commute? Kick it up a gear with GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+ and on the GB News app. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player app. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with GB News Radio. We are the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm with you till 7 o'clock tonight alongside me, Matt Goodwin and Jonathan Liss Remain. Lots of you getting in touch that have signed this petition. So many people are getting in touch, basically. Who's this? Tony has said, Michelle, hang on, you can't make the false comparison between this number of signatures on this this petition and the one for revoke Article 50 because the duration was completely different. No, Tony, I'm not talking about the volume. I'm just talking about the principle. If people are saying that there should be a general election because millions have signed this one, where do you draw the line with that? We don't govern by petitions, do we? That was merely my point. Lots of you getting in touch. Joe says, Michelle, I signed this petition because currently she feels, I think, in just despair. I mean, it's a long email, but I can summarise it by saying that you think, basically, in despair, people saying that they signed it as a protest vote to register their frustration. Craig's in Bradford. He said, I signed it literally just to send who he calls to take care something to think about. That's what the message is coming through thick and fast. You want this government to reflect on the fact that many people feel disenfranchised. Nathan, you say you're a Labour Party member and you've signed it because you feel frustrated as well by the current direction of travel. Let's speak about that direction because the Chancellor, she, was speaking at the CBI summit today. Let's take a listen.
We have now drawn a line under the inheritance that I faced. Public finances are now on a firm footing, and also our public services are funded in a proper way. And we've now set the envelope for those public services for the rest of this Parliament, which means we're not going to have to come back for more.
You see, the million-dollar question here, so she's saying that categorically we're not going to come back for more. Dave, he's in Redditch, he's got in touch and said, Michelle, you're all going off on tangents here because the argument currently right now is about this government, in his mind, was elected under a set of lies. They told us stuff, got elected, and what they said wasn't true. And this is one of the challenges when Rachel Reeves says to business, we won't be coming back a second time, is whether or not she will be believed a second time.
Yeah, well, I think there is a trust problem with the Labour government. Even Paul Johnson, the head of the Institute for Fiscal Studies, has been pretty vocal in saying essentially Labour misled the country ahead of the election. Firstly, in terms of the manifesto promises it made, saying it won't raise taxes, and obviously we saw the NI employer tax increases, but also knowing full well before it came into power about the so-called 22 billion black hole. Labour knew about that. They had meetings with the Treasury, so she's gaslighting the country by claiming otherwise. But the big story today from this conference for me is, you know, Michelle, businesses saying they no longer feel confident in investing in UK PLC. And you don't have to be a genius to figure out why. We've got a big state, we've got big regulation, we've got big tax, especially for business. We've got higher corporation tax rates in this country than the average across Europe and advanced Western nations. We've got a low-growth economy. Even Labour's plans, when you get to the end of the current Parliament, their own numbers show we've got a growth rate of 1.5%. There is no growth strategy for this country. And on top of that, not that anyone in the Labour Party will tell you this, but we've got a model, a broken model of mass immigration, which is flooding our economy with low-wage, low-skill migrants from outside of Europe who are taking more out of the economy than they're putting in. The OBR numbers show that. Every low-wage, low-skill migrant costs us between £150,000 and £1 million. So basically what I'm saying is we have a Labour Party here, an economic growth strategy here that makes absolutely no sense. And the first people who have realised that are big business, because they know the economy. It's business people today saying, we don't feel like we can invest in this Labour economy.
And there was a survey done by the CBI, and the outcome of the survey said 62% of the businesses that they surveyed said that they're going to hire fewer staff as a result of the budget. 48% of them said that they're going to cut their staff numbers. What do you think of some of this?
Well, I just say to the point about investment that the government did host a major investment summit a few weeks ago, and companies came from around the world to signal their confidence in the UK economy and to signal the millions or billions that they were planning to invest in different parts.
That was before the budget, though, wasn't it?
I think people were fully aware in the days up to the budget that it was going to be a revenue-raising budget, so I don't think that was necessarily going to...
CBI people, members, they're saying that they found this NI rise quite a shock.
I think that, well, the NI rise have been full-grounded for a little while. Obviously, I'm not saying that all companies are going to agree with it or that businesses are not going to be affected by it in some way. If there were magic bullets for the economy, then any government would fire them, but all decisions have trade-offs, and it's the role of government to decide if the benefits are worth the trade-offs, and none of us is a fortune teller. People make their best bet, I suppose, about with the best information and best expertise to hand about what might be the levers to pull to get the results that you want. Some of them will work better than others. I think most people agreed that at the end of the last Conservative government, public services were in disarray, and that clearly we need money to repair them. It can't just be reform. So the government has to find money. And so it hemmed itself into a corner by refusing to allow rises in employee national insurance and VAT and income tax. I think that was a mistake. And if I'd been Chancellor, I'd have pulled different levers. I'd have targeted different taxes. But this is a decision that Reeves has made, and time will tell if that leads to growth.
So Nathan, the one that I read out a minute ago, the viewer, he got in touch and said that he's a Labour Party member and he signed this petition, as I was just explaining. He said, and I'm quoting him directly, he said one of the reasons he signed this petition was because he feels like a mug. He says the Labour Party had me out knocking on doors, telling people, trying to convert and convince people, and it was based on false promises. He goes on to say it's a complete disgrace, and now he's in a position where he wants to look at resigning his party membership.
I mean, obviously, you'd have to ask him about which of the promises he's referring to.
Well, no, I'll speak for you, Nathan, if you don't mind, because I know a couple of them off the top of my head. So the whole kind of situation with the farmer inheritance tax, that APR rate was categorically told not once but twice that rate would never be touched. Steve Reid said that. It was touched. That has really outraged farmers.
Was that actually in the manifesto?
It was said, Steve Reid said, in two separate farmer conferences in advance of the election that the APR rate would not be touched, that this would not be happening. And when you say was it in the manifesto, I don't know how you spend your spare time, but most voters out there, they listen to headlines.
No, Michelle, I agree. I agree with you that I think that ministers or would-be ministers were not straightforward enough with people. And
no, they were very straightforward.
Yes, but they weren't. Right, and I think that it was across the board that there was a refusal by all main parties to be honest with the British people about...
But that's not acceptable.
No, I agree with you. And we need to change the way we do politics, so people are capable of hearing the truth, and politicians need to be a lot more forthright in explaining that when the situation is dire, there will be tough decisions to be made, and those conversations can't just happen after the election. I would agree with you on that. And I think that the Labour Party was as I said, they painted themselves into a corner on the things they wouldn't do, and that has left them with far fewer levers to pull.
But fundamentally, the problem isn't actually, I mean, I can't believe I'm saying this, but the problem isn't the Labour Party. The problem is we have an economic model in this country presided over by both the established left and right that does not work. It is big state, high tax, big borrowing, expensive debt, big immigration, London-centric. It is not working. Basically, in the aftermath of the Brexit referendum, whatever your views of Brexit, Remain, Leave, whatever, we should have done the very opposite of what we did. We should have made this country unbelievably competitive and attractive for business, and also at the same time saying we're expecting businesses to innovate, to reform, to not just do what businesses usually do, which is rely on endless amounts of cheap migrant labour, and we should have tried to push this country into a much more serious growth model. We didn't do that, so now we're reverting to type. Taxes, the highest tax burden I think we've had pretty much since the Second World War. Debt to GDP, 100%, except now debt's a lot more expensive. The state is ballooning. The quangos are ballooning. We've got a Chancellor who seems to be lying on her lying about her CV rather than being honest about the state of the economy. No, but it's true. But all of it adds to this sense that nobody really knows how to get out of this broken model and get to a growth strategy.
I agree with you that we have a broken economic model in lots of ways. I'm sure that my prescriptions will be different from yours in many ways, but we've had poor productivity for a very long time, flatlining growth throughout the last Conservative government, or the majority of it, and I know you'll disagree with this, but most economists will agree that Brexit has basically been a slow puncture in our economy, and people are beginning to talk about that in the government for the first time. Obviously, we're not going back into the single market of the customs union, so
that'd be a disaster if we did.
The damage is baked in, whether you agree with that or not.
Well, so is the opportunity to do things differently.
Then actually, that's a really good point, because you talk about making Britain extremely competitive, and I suppose I would ask you how that would affect things like regulation. Workers' rights. Because when people talk about the Singapore and Thames, which sounds suspiciously like what you're saying with making Britain very competitive, the kind of the free market, sort of libertarian.
This is a mindset of the left. Whenever you mention being competitive, they say, "Oh, you must be this extreme economic model."
There was a view of Brexiters that the Singapore and Thames was a legitimate view of many Brexiters, not shared by all of them, but the Rees-Mogg sort of segment of the Brexiteer demographic was all in favour of deregulating, making Britain competitive, and that would not actually have benefited a lot of the people who voted for Brexit, because it would have been their jobs on the line.
Let me put it this way. If it's a choice between us being closer to the European Union economic model, which is basically big state, big regulation, protectionism, and a declining share of the global economy, versus being closer to Donald Trump's economy, which is anti-China, reviving industry, sceptical about net zero, patriotic protectionism, slashing tax and regulation for business, slashing tax and regulation for business. On balance, I think the role that the UK should have pursued is being a nimble, independent economic player between the two, but if anything, leaning closer to America than Europe.
How does Trump's protectionism help our exporters?
Trump has with an industrial strategy or an industrial sector like the US, you can afford to do something like a more protectionist mindset where you're encouraging businesses to reshore, to bring industry back to America. It's different for us. We can't do all of that. But what we can do is try and find competitive advantages over the European Union and America. But on balance, we need to be closer to the US.
That's what the government has done. Obviously, the government
what Labour's trying to do is lead us back into the European Union.
Labour's been in office for 5 months.
It's trying to lead us back into the European Union.
No, that's just not...
Raising taxes, raising spending, raising borrowing.
The Conservatives signed free trade agreements, and the farmers, we talked a lot about farmers in the last couple of weeks, they were sold down the river by those agreements that the government signed in haste or in a couple of easy headlines in the Daily Mail, and farmers are complaining that they're now being sort of undercut by sort of sheep, sort of lamb exports from Australia and New Zealand. And obviously the reason, one of the stumbling blocks for the US trade deal, and the reason it probably won't happen, is that obviously we'll have to reduce our food standards, which won't be popular here either. So when you're talking about sort of moving close to America, there are concrete hurdles which would not be popular to remove, no matter which government's doing it.
There's a growth story, there's a much more compelling growth story for us, which is being outside of a declining, inefficient, over-regulated European Union. And what frustrates me about the Labour Party is that its answer to everything is a sort of pessimistic, depressing, managed decline, rather than, we can do this. We can actually do something really interesting. We can carve out a really interesting, independent, global Britain story. And it's not to say we're going to be the best in the world, but we can be nimble and independent and be welcoming to business. Like, I'll give you one example. I'll give you an example. Why have we got a corporation tax rate that's higher than the average across the European Union? Why have we got that?
Well, the government's
That's bananas. Why are we increasing the tax burden to the highest rate pretty much since the Second World War?
Well, the
That's
Conservatives
bananas.
did that already.
Yeah, I'm not here to defend the Conservative Party. But what I'm saying is, you look at these decisions that have been made and you think they're absolutely bananas. When all the evidence shows that mass migration is undermining prosperity, why do Labour carry on doing it?
Well,
why don't we switch? That is what the evidence shows.
That's not all the evidence.
Even the OBR shows that, and all the studies in Europe show that. You're just not reading the research. Why don't we switch to a high-skill, low immigration model? Why don't we do that? Why don't we actually invest in being a prosperous nation, thinking ahead?
There's no either or. This is not a zero-sum game. Migration has been a positive, been a positive in the country. Obviously, you will select.
It's making us
you
poorer.
will select the data that shows your case.
What, the OBR? Do you disagree with the OBR?
The OBR has lots of things to say about migration.
Right, but just things that you don't agree with.
No. I could level that complaint against you. And many people on Twitter pointed out the flaws in your own research. repeatedly, Matt. So, look, we can have a conversation about migration. I don't think it's the biggest story in what we're talking about growth. And everyone is talking about making Britain the nimble, competitive sort of country that you're talking about. With obviously, we have a lot going for us with our position, our English language, London, etc. So, of course, we should make it a competitive.
Why are all the entrepreneurs leaving? Why are the millionaires and billionaires leaving?
I'm not sure that many of them are, actually.
According to the press, they are. About 5,000 to 6,000 of them are leaving. Why are they?
Why?
Maybe because they've looked at the Labour plans. Maybe because they've looked at the Labour Party plans and they have seen a government that, like you mentioned that conference, the summit, when Labour snubbed Elon Musk like a 15-year-old teenager in a school playground. That's what business sees. It's not a serious government. It's a student union government.
Elon Musk is tweeting out propaganda and false lies about Keir Starmer on a daily basis.
You see what I mean?
Keir Starmer is completely within his rights not to invite Musk to a summit.
Right. The wealthiest man in the planet. Let's not get close to him. Let's not get close to Donald Trump.
I think that Britain can do perfectly well without Elon Musk. Elon Musk is obviously a powerful and influential man, but it was also, funnily enough, it's the other side, your side of the debate that normally complains about the interference of foreign billionaires in our politics. So I do find it quite amusing when Farage and his tribe sort of, goes on about sort of attempting Elon Musk over here. So Richard Tice was talking about how he's a foreign, this billionaire Elon Musk is going to be influential in our politics, which is normally a stance that the right takes when it's Remain supporting billionaires, for example.
We have the most pro-British president, pro-Britain president, pro-UK president coming into the White House for a very long time. Probably not since Reagan. Probably not since Reagan.
He didn't sign a trade deal.
Probably not.
Theresa May sort of bowed and scraped asking for one. He didn't give her one.
Probably not since Reagan, who is invested in this country, has golf courses in this country, is in love with aspects of this country. Our job right now should be to welcome with open arms the new American administration, the US administration, rather than chase this really depressing, unproductive European Union and try and go back to 2015, which is clearly what Keir Starmer wants to do.
A lot of viewers are getting in touch. Michelle, please can you say, many of you have the same sentiment, that the reason you feel that Brexit hasn't been a roaring success is because you guys are suggesting to me that the political will to enact it properly was missing. Keep your thoughts coming in. I want to talk then about the state of the streets of Britain. Did you see that shooting? An 8-year-old child injured. I also want to ask the NHS, it's in dire straits, we know this. Why do they seem to be spending so much energy then on embedding radical gender ideology? You, tell me.
Hello, good evening. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. After a blustery day, we are going to see winds ease into this evening, leaving a mix of clear spells and showers tonight, and it is going to be turning rather chilly under those clearer skies too. Storm Bert, currently sat to the northeast of the UK, will eventually move its way over to Scandinavia. It does leave behind some blustery winds and some outbreaks of rain for a time, though these will eventually ease away overnight. Still plenty of blustery showers though moving through, particularly around western coasts, and these may linger on for a time, bringing longer spells of rain at times too, particularly across parts of the south. Further inland across central and southeastern areas, we're likely to see plenty of clearer skies, so a risk of frost, perhaps even some fog patches by the time we reach tomorrow morning. So through around Scotland, we are still going to continue to see plenty of showers, mainly around coasts, though a few feeding inland at times too. Under clearer skies, though, it is going to be feeling chilly with a risk of frost. Still plenty of showers around coasts of Northern Ireland, northwest England too. Drier and clearer further east, and generally across parts of England and Wales, it is going to be a much clearer start to the day. Once again, a risk of frost, perhaps even some fog patches by the time we reach the morning. But overall on Tuesday, it is set to be a much brighter day. Still can't rule out some showers, mainly around northwestern coasts, perhaps just feeding inland and across northern parts of England at times. But overall a brighter day, plenty of sunshine, and with much lighter winds, it's likely to feel much more pleasant compared to this afternoon. That's away from northeastern coasts of Scotland though, still some blustery winds here and still plenty of showers moving through. Now, heading into Wednesday, we'll see a bit of a split in the weather. Outbreaks of rain across the south, some blustery winds. This rain could linger for a time across central and parts of southeast England. But to the north of this, plenty of clear skies, plenty of sunny spells, still just a few showers around coastal areas. And to finish off the week, likely to see some foggy and frosty mornings, but still plenty of sunshine by day. Bye for now.
The latest GB News travel.
Good evening, I'm Johnny Ratner. Long delays in Fife on the M90. The motorway is partly blocked northbound at Junction 2 at the scene of a crash. Queues back over the Queensferry crossing, back towards the M9. In Cheshire on the M56, one lane's closed eastbound, Junction 7 to 6, Bowden to Hale, where a lorry's broken down. And the M11 is blocked southbound heading into Essex from Junction 9 to 8 towards the A120, towards Stansted following a crash, causing long queues back towards Cambridge. In South London at Wallington, the A237 Manor Road closed after a building was damaged by the storm yesterday morning near Park Road. Long queues out of Bristol on the M32, one lane shut from Junction 3 to 2 following an accident south of the M4. Many roads in the southwest of England are closed because of flooding, including Barford Bridge and Town Bridge at Bradford on Avon in Wiltshire, and the A37 south of Ilchester, and many trains are disrupted as well, so check before you travel. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
Hello there, Michelle Dewberry. Till 7 o'clock, Matt Goodwin alongside me, as is Jonathan Liss. That sentiment there about Brexit not being implemented properly really is coming through thick and fast on that one. We've also created quite a debate tonight about what does it mean to be patriotic. There's quite a lot of different opinions coming in, but one thing that's coming through thick and fast is you guys saying that you're prepared to die. Being patriotic means that you'd be prepared to die for your country. Does that summarise you? Does that summarise you? Does that kind of, do you connect with that? Well, I'm not going to open that can of worms. I've got one panellist that says that they would. I'm not sure about the other one. But anyway, you can tell me at home whether or not you would. The NHS, that has been accused of going work. When has it not been accused? Basically, this is a whistleblower, and this whistleblower is connected to the Blood and Transport Authority. And it's transplant, yeah, and transport. They transport it as well.
They transport organs.
A fact checker on side me, yeah. Look, the whistleblower here, she's raising concerns, saying that this, what she calls radical gender ideology, is embedded so deeply into the NHS, and she's flagging concerns about relabelling and kind of how things are categorised and compartmentalised now because of this desire to tick boxes with this ideology.
It's a really important story, and I just need to put my hands up and say this was published in my Substack by James Esses, who is an expert on gender ideology, and he's been exposing how these ideas have been doing the rounds in the BBC and other organisations. But anyway, he looks today at the NHS Blood and Transplant Service Authority. A whistleblower has revealed, basically, that the NHS is still embracing and imposing this ideology, this dogma on staff and patients. And what's crucial, Michelle, is you might remember, viewers might remember something called the Cass Review. This was the most comprehensive scientific review of the role of gender ideology basically in healthcare, and Dr. Cass concluded essentially that there was insufficient evidence to be allowing this ideology to be telling staff and patients that they should be changing, you know, their treatments or transitioning and so forth based on ideology. And what James has found through this whistleblower is this stuff is rife. I mean, it is going on despite the Cass Review. Here's a couple of things. That the NHS Blood and Transplant are encouraging people to produce bespoke LGBT plus T-shirts and baseball caps, joining the LGBT plus ally program, wearing lanyards, joining workshops that talk about pronouns and how to treat people with many different types of genders, warning that people will be offended if white is placed first in a list of ethnic groups, warning people not to refer to a trans person by their birth name because this would be called dead naming, among much other besides. The point here is, we were told this stuff wouldn't be happening in the NHS after the Cass Review, that the experts would actually roll back ideological dogma, but this shows it's still rife, it's everywhere, it's endemic.
One of the things this says as well, when it comes to blood packs, Jonathan, that now staff have to reference gender codes when it comes to blood packs. This apparently also looks at someone's sex assigned at birth and then kind of matches as well how they now identify in terms of their gender. What has any of that got to do with the specifics of your blood?
Well, I mean, I'm not an expert in blood, but of course, obviously, sex is an important part of that characteristic. And I suppose if people identify as a different gender, they might want that to be recorded. I just don't think it's a big issue either way. And I think the problem with what Matt's addressing is that there is a deep kind of culture war issue here, where you have a group of people who see conspiracy everywhere, who want us all to be terrified and angry about everything all the time. And actually, I don't think most people mind if there is just a little bit more care taken towards inclusive language, for example, or to making people feel that they are welcome in the NHS and in different sort of institutional spaces. No one is being asked to think differently or to behave differently.
They're being told
it's
to go...
just being a little bit more respectful. I don't think it's a big issue.
John, we're not talking about a politics debating society. We're talking about the National Health Service, which is supposed to be based on something called evidence or science. Now, the Cass Review, which presumably you're familiar with, concluded that the gender gobbledygook basically should have no real place in our scientific health-based profession, that forcing kids, which presumably, if I were to raise this, you'd say, Matt, you're starting a culture war. Mutilating children...
Well, that is a deeply inflammatory...
Mutilating children in the name of gender ideology, you're OK with that, right? Whereas the Cass Review was very clear at saying we should not be forcing children to transition, to go down medical pathways, because there was insufficient evidence. Now, I believe in the West. I believe in Enlightenment values, which means I believe in science and knowledge. What you are saying is anybody who doesn't believe those things is transphobic or is hateful, and we should just be inclusive. Sorry, but you're talking nonsense. Science first, ideological dogma out the window.
I mean, I'm glad that Matt thinks he knows so much about the things I believe, which I haven't actually said. But this is just very, very typical of his style of debating, where he'll just sort of construct entire arguments and put them on other people to make the straw man case that he's trying to make. Mutilating children, if you're going to have a debate about this, use temperate language. This is absolutely no way to
abusing children.
No, it's no way to conduct.
It's child abuse.
No.
Giving children puberty blockers is child abuse.
You can argue about the relative merits of puberty blockers without using words like mutilation.
It's child abuse.
It's not about surgical intervention.
Giving children treatments where there is insufficient evidence is child abuse.
There is a wealth. We can talk about the Cass Review and about the different reports that were made, and there was a lot of critical discussion about that, about the reports that she'd made, and the evidence about puberty blockers is actually very, very well researched.
Does this issue concern you? Are you someone that rolls your eyes and go, here we are again? Or are you someone that goes, this is incredibly important and it's not getting enough airtime? Tell me your thoughts and I'll see you in 2.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
But it turns out there's a growing number of grandparents who are now taking up the hobby.
And not all of them are male. 7 million gamers are aged over 50, 7 million of them. And we're going to introduce you to one this morning. Her name's Kath Bowie. She's 76 years of age, and Kath has become a worldwide star of the game Fortnite. Good to see you, Kath.
Hello, good morning to both of you.
Morning. And tell me this, Kath, is Bowie your real name?
Bowie. Yeah.
Bowie.
Yes, it is my real name, yes.
And you do it a Bowie and not a Bowie?
It's a Bowie, yes, definitely Bowie, yes.
Bowie or Bowie?
Bowie.
Bowie.
But that's not what the Jim Bowie was called, or Jim Bowie was called in the Alamo. He was a Bowie.
No, but that's what I'm called, Kath Bowie.
Oh,
She's their own superstar.
You are your own superstar. You are indeed. Well, so we're led to believe, Kath, that there's nobody else like you, or very few people like you, but there is. There is lots of people your age, your stage, doing what you do.
Yes, there's not a lot that streams. OK, Fortnite, but there's definitely plenty that plays. Any game, you know what I mean? It doesn't have to be Fortnite. It can be any game.
So, Kath, how did you get started in all of this?
Oh, yeah, well, it's 7 years ago, actually. I walked into my teenage grandson's bedroom and just saw him playing what I now know, of course, what I play is Fortnite. And that was the very first week that Epic had released it. And it was just really love at first sight.
GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Weekdays on GB News. Wake up to breakfast every day from 6 a.m. Followed by Britain's newsroom at 9:30. At noon, it's Good Afternoon Britain. Followed by Martin Daubney from 3 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Hello there, Michelle Dewberry, Matt Goodwin and Jonathan Liss remain alongside you. Time flies, doesn't it? Look, I was in London this weekend. I was taking my little boy to go see the snowman. It was excellent. I couldn't help but notice, though, 10 minutes away from where I was, Westminster Bridge was closed. Why? Because there'd been some random knifing at 10:45 in the morning. And, I mean, it really got me wondering, what is London coming to? But then I realised as well there'd been a shooting not far away in London where an 8-year-old child had been injured. A man has been arrested on suspicion of that crime, so I can't delve too much in the details of that shooting for legal reasons. But what is going on? Are the streets getting worse, or does it just feel that way, Matt?
Well, the other thing we learned about London this week is that over 50,000 mobile phones have been stolen from people, and London is right up there with, I think it's Madrid, as one of the cities where basically this crime is sort of being mainstreamed and de facto legalised. Violent crimes are up. Overall crime appears to be down, but violent crimes are up. A lot of it gang-based violence, the county lines type stuff. I don't feel safe in London anymore, I'll be honest. I walk around London all the time. I've been in London since the 80s. I think Sadiq Khan has made a series of disastrous errors. London is nowhere, is nothing compared to what it was. It's sort of become a kind of gritty, dirty, crime-infested, kind of left-wing dystopia. That's how I kind of see London.
London's always been a left-wing city, and London's always had...
No, that's not true, actually.
London's had a problem with violent crime for a long time, and as do all major cities. And
do you feel safe in London, though?
I've lived in London my whole life. I take precautions like anyone else. I don't feel less safe now. I don't feel safe.
Do you feel safe?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, I don't feel safe.
OK, fine. Well, you know, I'm not saying that crime can't affect anybody. It can. And we have to do more to tackle that. But
what do you think
I don't think that London is this hellhole that you describe, and I don't think it helps anyone to describe it as a hellhole.
I don't think I said hellhole. I said crime-infested dystopia.
My apologies for misrepresenting you on that particular issue. There are obviously parts of London that are less safe than others, and there are things that we need to do to make communities feel safe, because the majority of crime affects the people in those communities, not people outside.
It doesn't feel integrated, though, either. When I walk around London, I mean, I know everybody does the whole, like, you know, diversity is our strength thing, but London, to me, having lived in different parts of the country, having lived in different countries as well, and other major cities, London doesn't actually feel particularly integrated to me. It feels very segregated and kind of very individualistic, and there's not... I just think London's going through a moment. It's going through a sort of identity crisis at the moment, where people can see a lot of the narratives that we're given are so hollow and empty and vacuous, they don't really mean anything. You know, the fireworks display often symbolises this to me. We sort of stand around looking at fireworks that say, oh, diversity is our strength. And then you look around at actually what London looks like. And part of those,
those fireworks displays are commemorating something that happened 400 years ago, by the way. So actually, I thought that you'd be quite pleased about that.
But there's no unifying, compelling, interesting story about London anymore. It feels like managed decline.
It just doesn't interest you.
What is this? Tell Tell me, what is the story?
Well, the story, obviously, of London has changed very much over the centuries.
Right, so what excites you about London now?
Well, the things that excite me about London, the things that have always excited me about the level of culture here, the diversity, which obviously you don't think much of, but I love it, and the array of cultures and things that you can do. It's a fantastic city. There are big problems, but it's still a fantastic city.
Well, Flick has said, one of my viewers, Felicity, she's got in touch and said, one of the things I love about my country is we can have a big ding-dong like Matt and Jonathan had tonight. There's no fisticuffs. We all get on, and then they shake hands together at the end of it. I don't know about that last bit there, Flick. But I hear what you're saying. Gents, thank you very much for your company. There you go. You can get some excitement. Have a drink after the show. Go on. Look, that's all from us tonight. I will see you tomorrow. Have a good one tonight.
We'll see a cold snap, which will quickly develop into a warm front. Boxed Boiler Repairs, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, good evening. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. After a blustery day, we are going to see winds ease into this evening, leaving a mix of clear spells and showers tonight, and it is going to be turning rather chilly under those clearer skies too. Storm Bert, currently sat to the northeast of the UK, will eventually move its way over to Scandinavia. It does leave behind some blustery winds and some outbreaks of rain for a time, though these will eventually ease away overnight. Still plenty of blustery showers though moving through, particularly around western coasts, and these may linger on for a time, bringing longer spells of rain at times too, particularly across parts of the south. Further inland across central and southeastern areas, we're likely to see plenty of clearer skies, so a risk of frost, perhaps even some fog patches by the time we reach tomorrow morning. So through around Scotland, we are still going to continue to see plenty of showers, mainly around coasts, though a few feeding inland at times too. Under clearer skies, though, it is going to be feeling chilly with a risk of frost. Still plenty of showers around coasts of Northern Ireland, northwest England too. Drier and clearer further east, and generally across parts of England and Wales, it is going to be a much clearer start to the day. Once again, a risk of frost, perhaps even some fog patches by the time we reach the morning. But overall on Tuesday, it is set to be a much brighter day. Still can't rule out some showers, mainly around northwestern coasts, perhaps just feeding inland and across northern parts of England at times. But overall, a brighter day, plenty of sunshine, and with much lighter winds, it's likely to feel much more pleasant compared to this afternoon. That's away from northeastern coasts of Scotland, though. Still some blustery winds here and still plenty of showers moving through. Now, heading into Wednesday, we'll see a bit of a split in the weather. Outbreaks of rain across the south, some blustery winds. This rain could linger for a time across central and parts of southeast England. But to the north of this, plenty of clear skies, plenty of sunny spells, still just a few showers around coastal areas. And to finish off the week, likely to see some foggy and frosty mornings, but still plenty of sunshine by day. Bye for now.
A nice bright morning will generate a lovely warm day, right through to the evening. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good evening, I'm Johnny Ratner. Long delays up in South Yorkshire on the